Hey guys, this is RuRoniK95 here, and once again, time for a movie review video. Yes, this is the first time I haven't done a movie review video in quite a long time, because we haven't done these kinds of movie reviews that often those days, particularly as well. Thus being said, it's been long overdue, which is something that I haven't thought of reviewing one before, which I probably should have done. I think I've had. And this is the movie that I wanted to review that I haven't done one for a very long time until now, and that is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This movie was based on the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. Is particularly of how this movie, how it's considered to be a favorite to all who this movie particularly, especially from director Mel Stewart, as how the music is provided from Anthony Newley and Leslie Bricusse, or whatever you want to pronounce Leslie's last name. They're the music composers who wrote the songs for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory on here. Thus being said, without any further ado, which is right here, right now, let's review this movie, because this is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Our movie starts off with the story of how this sets off in European town, known as how the kids are out of school and they went to the candy shop, particularly trying these sweets, every types of candy, to the satisfactory of how they wanted to do this, until the Candyman introduced them to the Scrumdiddlyushus bar, which is put out by Wonka himself as well. Charlie Bucket sees something in the window, because these kids are trying those candies as well. Yeah, and Charlie Bucket, however, worked as a newspaper boy, particularly when he was passing out newspaper to all the people in the neighborhood. Until that evening comes, he sees the Wonka's Candy Factory tour, particularly, or which is basically closed as well. The Tinker told that Charlie, he said that no one ever goes in and no one ever comes out, particularly. This was after ever since Charlie got the loaf of bread, particularly. So he came back to his home with especially the residence of Grandpa Joe as well, particularly. Charlie Bucket told Grandpa Joe that he's run into the Tinker and saying that no one ever goes in, no one ever goes out, particularly. Yeah, because Wonka has closed his candy factory, particularly, because the mysterious man that goes by the names Slugworth always made Wonka close his candy factory as well. And the workers left Wonka's Candy Factory tour, particularly, and for some reason, because Slugworth basically hired some spies, basically, of when they wanted to steal Wonka's secret recipes as well. So particularly, Wonka has putting out all these golden tickets. Particularly of how for every person who has to bring one family member to Wonka's Candy Factory tour, particularly. The first one being the fat kid who lives in Germany named Augustus Gloop. The second being the British spoiled kid named Veruca Salt. The third, as being said, is the American girl who's always constantly chewing gum, as always, Violet Beauregard. And the fourth being the TV watching kid who always watches westerns and as well as dressed as a cowboy, This goes by the name Mike TV as well. Every one of those kids always wanted to get those Wonka bars that came with the golden ticket. That Wonka has been hiding in his golden tickets on every one of those Wonka bars, especially for those who are the lucky winners decided to be on a tour to Wonka's Candy Factory, particularly, as how this got to him as well. Unlike most of the news, particularly of how they're explaining about the sign of our life as well, particularly of most of them have other candy shops that never got any Wonka bars. I guess most of them might have been sold out because the others wanted to look for the golden ticket. That's why. So this wasn't long until particularly this has been sold to the billionaire who is in South America, of how got the fifth golden ticket. But it turns out that it was actually a fake. So he brought up a lie as well, because this almost let Charlie and Grandpa Joe feel left out, which is particularly kind of out in the cold, particularly ever since Charlie's birthday has passed, particularly in the middle of mid-September, as how this particularly goes. And for some reason, particularly, this wasn't long until Charlie has found money that is found in a gutter, until he wants to go to a candy shop, particularly. When he first tried the Wonka's Scrumdiddlyumptious bar, and then he had to pay it until he has money left over, so he had to pay for the Wonka bar. When he heard people going around rumors about this billionaire made up a lie about the fake golden ticket, that he claims that he was the winner with the fifth golden ticket, but in reality he lied about it. But this wasn't long until when Charlie Bucket opened his Wonka bar, as how he particularly sees a miracle that he is the fifth person who has got the golden ticket. And everyone is shocked by surprise that he got the last golden ticket, until they told Charlie to run home because he's got the golden ticket. Until Charlie has, on his way back, when he was running back home towards to Grandpa Joe's residence home, particularly as Charlie's home as well, until he first ran into Slugworth, particularly when he's surprised that Wonka is inventing the newest one that he has in his candy factory, or as the chocolate factory, as in the everlasting gobstopper as well. Until this wasn't long until Charlie come home, and he has basically told, because he got this for Grandpa Joe, because this how the golden ticket presented in the at Willy Wonka's candy factory, chocolate factory, particularly as presented in the 1st of October, because he has to bring one family member and only one family member that Charlie has to pick. So he decided to pick Grandpa Joe to come to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, particularly. And this wasn't long until October 1st comes, and everybody who got the golden tickets are presented at the gate to Willy Wonka's Candy Factory tour, until Willy Wonka arrives, and how he's greeting those who got the golden ticket as well. Because they were basically amused of how they came to, how they signed the names in the contract under Willy Wonka, particularly of how they wrote with a feather, particularly as a pen. So they wanted to run into how they could use the door, particularly of how using the combination lock of how considered how they wanted to basically of how they went over to the other room, and they were trapped to the other room when they wanted to go figure out the way to go through. Like, they were all bumping into each other, pushing and shoving, and being squished as well. This is like kind of like Black Friday at Walmart, particularly. And at this point, they found out Wonka has figured out the way of how he basically opened the door. And this room is a little smallest, particularly. And then he introduces everybody to the chocolate factory room, where everyone is eating candies, especially like they're made from like these grass and trees and other kinds of sweets of how Wonka has in his chocolate room, particularly, including a chocolate river, particularly. Everybody notices the Oompa Loompas, particularly, as well. This wasn't long until Augustus Gloop was drinking from the chocolate river, but he fell into the chocolate river, and he got sucked into the pipe, though, which led to how it's basically he was building behind the blockage of how it shoots Augustus through the pipe, which leads him to the fudge room, particularly, because I guess basically Augustus got in trouble for falling into the chocolate water. That's particularly how it happens to him as well. And this particularly means the Oompa Loompas use the song, particularly of how it's got the perfect way to solve a puzzle of somebody who gets into trouble, particularly, especially the first one on Augustus Gloop. And then they went into this the boat ride thing, which goes through a tunnel, like a psychedelic vibe-ish ones, including like these images where you see like birds and like insects, as well as chicken's head being decapitated, and then it shows the image of Slugworth, particularly, until it wasn't long until they stopped the boat, particularly. And on the top of this, they went into the inventing room, particularly, where they have all these kinds of ones of how he made ones, particularly what Wonka has a lot to do for it, particularly. And then, for some reason, though, he has passing out these everlasting gobstoppers as well, particularly, as how, just to consider the fact to any person of how he made everlasting gobstoppers. And then he went to this inventing gum machine thing, which is basically the ones that are those 3-course dinner, which are these gums that haven't been tested yet. But this wasn't long until Violet Beauregard tasted this gum, which is a 3-course dinner. So this basically causes her of turning violet, particularly, which is how she became a blueberry. Especially when her body gets all inflated and after her face turning blue, or bluish violet, particularly. When it comes to the desserts, because Wonka was right, it happens, all of them, when they all become blueberries, particularly, as well. And that's how Wonka wanted to prompt the Oompa Loompas to take the blueberry violet to the juicing room to squeeze out all the juice before she explodes, which is a fairly simple operation as well. And then this wasn't long until how the Oompa Loompas got Violet Beauregard to the juicing room as well. And then, when this was how before Grandpa Joe and Charlie Bucket wanted to test out the drinks of these fizzy lifting drinks, particularly, which almost got into danger, which they floating up in the air, particularly, which they could have almost gotten killed, which is not in a good way. Particularly, because the only way to make themselves safe from danger is to burp. Because of course, fizzy lifting drinks are everywhere in this movie. And then we get to the part of how we see these are the geeses that have these eggs, which is a good egg, then it's basically accepted. But if it's a bad egg, they all go down the chute. Veruca, on the other hand, starts to go all spoiled again, where she wants one of those geeses. And then Veruca's father told Wonka how much are the geeses are, and then Wonka tells Veruca's father they're not for sale. Of course, that's why, because they are never to be sold. I mean, this was until when Veruca causes where she wants everything she gets in her own spoiled ways, until she went to the garbage chute, and then boom, she goes down the garbage chute. Because she's a bad egg as well. And then came Veruca's father down in the garbage chute as well, because that's how Veruca's father finds out as well. And then, because that's particularly how Wonka explains of how children are disappearing like rabbits, particularly, as well. And then they use the Wonka-mobile, of how they transport them to, like, the other room, Wonka Vision, of how his latest experiment, particularly of how they tested a Wonka bar, but then Mike TV tested it, and then it made him shrunk into this size of the littlest person, particularly, of how they got this as well. Because thinks that Mike TV is on television, but in reality he's shrunken, as well. So Wonka told the Oompa Loompa to take this shrunken in Mike TV to the Taffy Polar as well. Other than Augustus Gloop falling into the Chocolate River, Violet Beauregard turning into a blueberry, and Veruca Salt falling into the garbage chute, things just going quite pretty well, particularly. And Wonka has dismissed Grandpa Joe and Charlie, of how at the end of the tour, because so much had to pay the bill, he has the bill to sign as well. But this wasn't long until Grandpa Joe asks Wonka if he wants to know if Charlie has won any chocolate. But this particularly leads to Wonka snapping at Grandpa Joe, particularly of how they stole fizzy lifting drinks, of how they lost, particularly. And then Grandpa Joe wanted to tell Charlie to depart from the chocolate factory. But this wasn't, instead, Charlie gives Wonka the everlasting gobstopper. So Wonka has forgave Charlie that he has passed the test. Good for him as well. So this how they went to the elevator one, which Wonka has, was called the Wonkavator. So when they're in the Wonkavator, it goes out of the building as well. And for all this reason is that on any occasions of how it's floating through the air as well, including where you see where Charlie and Grandpa Joe sees their house and Charlie's school, because of how he decided to basically of how that Wonka realized that the chocolate factory goes to Charlie, particularly of how this had decided particularly. So he could have had the family, the rest of, because Wonka wanted to have Charlie and his family to get the chocolate factory as well. So he basically told Charlie, the man who got everything he wanted lived happily ever after. And that's how you end this movie, with a happily ending as well. So that's the story particularly. I mean, the budget gross has been costed about the $4 million, and the total like $3 million, and the budget's like part of the $4 million budget as well. Yeah, because This movie was originally released by Paramount Pictures back in the 70s, particularly, as well. This wasn't long until the 90s come. It had a re-release with Warner Brothers Pictures, particularly, when they got the rights from David L. Wolper and Paramount Pictures, particularly, of how they did this. I mean, it's such a good casting for it when they got Gene Wilder as the role for Willy Wonka as well. I mean, we all miss Gene Wilder as well, because he was a great actor for Willy Wonka in this movie particularly. And for some of this, basically wanted to know is how the production has been worked a lot of hard for this film, of how they made this movie particularly. And this movie particularly, the music, they all put in the songs particularly because just to give a little musical vibe ways of how they put this. Expect you seeing a movie being adapted from the book by Roald Dahl. Particularly, Roald Dahl didn't like the fact that they put the stealing fizzy lifting drinks scene during the production of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, particularly, as well. And of course, there is no villain. I mean, it never had Slugworth in the book, particularly. However, particularly as well, and Wilbur Wonka, who is never added in the movie with Gene Wilder, particularly, up until it was added in Tim Burton's movie with Johnny Depp arrived in 2005. But the 2005 one made me almost truer to the story of the original book roots. But nothing is compared to, there is no comparison to the one with Gene Wilder, because it's the definitive movie as well. Well, 1971 was the same year we had Trinity Is Still My Name, which is a perfect movie for all those who watch Terence Hill and Bud Spencer movies. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory has got the attention the most for all, because this particularly of how I wanted to come by on movies that are based on the books by authors as well, in general. This is why of how I want to come by for a movie for a change as well. It did have the thing for how they made this movie, of how a truthful thing is. Accordingly to the fact as well, of how I wanted to come by on how this movie particularly explains. And particularly. And for the thing is that the production on here, the cinematography is good. The music is pretty great also as well. And this movie has basically how it's got the own figurable thing as well, particularly. Just to consider the fact, particularly how I want to come by on a movie that is based on a book as well. And if you want to watch a movie like this for a change, for a great simple classic film that receiving a cult following, this is the perfect movie you want to check out as well. Especially not necessarily older movies in general. One of those movies that receiving a cult following for fans as well, like every day all over the world, as particularly how everybody has seen the movie. Some of them have how particularly of this as well. But when Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was first released on home video, they plastered they put the logo plastering while they replaced the Paramount Pictures logo with the Warner Brothers logo on there. Particularly, I mean, if you could ever find a version that has the Paramount logo, I figure you could find it in one of those 35mm projector film ones that show the Paramount logo when it was originally released by Paramount. Particularly, I think it's particularly only available on these film projector ones. Like if you look for it on eBay or anywhere, somewhere else as well, that'll get you going, particularly. Okay. I'm not sure if there are other region DVDs that have the Paramount logo in the, like, the restoration for the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie. I mean, if they ever do different versions, like the Warner Brothers version and the Paramount logo version, like, if there's differences of how, but that's just how it is as well. And my score for the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, because this is basically considered, or a 5 out of 5, yeah, because it's a movie, actually. Because this has particularly becoming a classic favorite to all those who know about this movie. So that's going to be it for my movie review on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for today, you guys. Thank you for watching, but before we go, here's what I'm going to say for this movie. It's been a while since I watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, not too long ago as well. Well, I think I have as well, because I think I watched this movie like lots and lots of times, because I think I've watched it on VHS now, but now I have it on DVD as well. If you want to binge watch on something like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, get it. Highly recommend it. If you have it on DVD or Blu-ray, or if it's on TV, feel free to watch that movie, because it's a classic. Hope subscribe for content. My anime planet link in the description. I'll be share this video on your Twitter, Facebook, if you have Twitter, Facebook account, and all social media. If you want to check out my anime planet, the link will be in the description down below. If you want to check out my anime planet, because I have a huge backlog of manga and anime on my anime planet account. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below on the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. What do you think of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And also, be sure to smack the like button if you enjoyed this video. Be sure to click on the subscribe button. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you haven't, check out my channel. If you're new to my channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well. Smack the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified also as well for more latest updates on here. And that's all I got for to say. Wow, it's been a long time since I haven't done a movie review in a while, since I was busy with other things. Yeah, because I haven't done any movie reviews in quite a while as well. This is K95 saying thank you for watching my video. I'm glad you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you soon for the next video. Hope you have a great day. This is K95 signing off. Thank you for watching my video, and I will see you soon for more videos. Take care. Bye.